Welcome everybody to the 45th Annual Tribune Sports Show. Thank you for coming. Growing up in the world of sport fishing, James Lindner has filmed and fished from the Arctic Circle tundra to South American jungles and from the Atlantic to the Pacific coast and every state in between. As a multi-species fisherman, James has few equals in the world of musky fishing, and in the world of musky fishing, he's legendary. Recognized as one of the best directors and producers in the outdoor industry, James is the son and nephew, respectively, of Ron and Al Lindner. James lives, eats, and sleeps fishing, leaving little time for non-fishing related activities. In 2008, James was inducted into the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame as a legendary communicator for his outstanding achievement in the realm of sport fishing, and in 2003, he was also honored as the Rapella Angler of the Year. Today, James is at the helm of Lindner Media Productions, which specializes in producing educational fishing programs, educational DVDs, national TV commercials, product sales presentations, point-of-purchase product DVDs, as well as providing their trademark underwater footage and photography to the sport fishing industry. Al, Ron, James, and Danielle and Bill Lindner are the creative forces behind Lindner Media and their wide variety of award-winning productions. Please join me in welcoming James to share with you his seminar on modern walleye logic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thank you for that introduction. It's a little bit long-winded for me, but thanks a lot for joining us today. I'm James Lindner, co-host of Angling Edge television program. Today, every one of these presentations I do, and over the course of the spring, I do quite a few different seminars. I speak to bass groups, walleye groups, smallmouth bass, catfish seminars. I speak a lot to a lot of different people throughout the course of the year. And one thing I can say about North American angling today is better than it's been in a long time. And I know we've got some older folks in this audience, and one being me. People say, angling is not as good as what it used to be. And in many cases, I would have to say that angling today is better than it's been for a long, long time. And it's because of smarter management philosophy from our Department of Natural Resources, angler ethics. Also, probably one of the biggest things is technology. We have fabulous technology to speed the fish finding process. This presentation we're going to get rolling on here is talking about modern walleye fishing. You know what? I know for a fact there's probably a lot better reservoir walleye anglers in this room than me. Guarantee you that. But one thing I will tell you, that I fished with some of the absolute best North American anglers, and I have a dramatic sort of understanding the nature of angling. And what I'm going to share with you some different things of what we've been doing, but what's really important, I'm really big on concepts. So many aspects of angling crosses species and geographical boundaries. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that some of you were in this the last seminar with Mr. Gilman. I'll talk a little bit about jigging wraps, but I'm going to talk about a wide variety of different presentation techniques. But one of the biggest things is for you to apply it to your water. I cannot give you my confidence in a given technique. The only time it's going to work for you, you got to bring it out, you fish it on your water. If you're successful with it, then it's a winner. You know what I mean? You put it in your toolbox. So many different people go out on fishing and they say, well, I always catch them here in June. Well, the fact of the matter is fish don't know anything about June or being on this point. They know about really two things. Number one is food, and the other is spawn. 90% of the fish's movement throughout the course of a year is associated with food. But we're going to get this presentation rolling, and what I would like to do is wait for the questions for the end, because otherwise I'll get derailed. And as you can see, I can talk for a lot here. But the first thing is these three things. This basic concept is something that we promoted for years. We used to own a company called In Fisherman, and it was a promotion of this concept that it applies to any aspect of fishing or any species of fish. It's understanding the nature of the fish. In this case, we happen to be talking about walleyes. The use of modern electronics to find fish seasonally. Realistically, every time you put your boat in the water, you have to realize that even in a small body of water, those fish move around dynamically. And there's a reason for it, and it's namely is food. And this is one of the biggest ones that we're going to dwell probably the most on within this presentation is how to experiment with the baits in your tackle box, how to mix and match, and how you actually operate. The best anglers in the world, you'd say, why is Chris Gilman a better walleye fisherman? Why is Al Lindner a better walleye fisherman than I am? Or Kevin Van Dam a better bass fisherman? And you'd say, well, he's got a lot better tackle than I do, which he probably does. He's got better electronics, he probably does too, but it isn't that. That is not what makes them a better angler. It's actually their approach and how they're thinking and how they go out in the water. You give Al Lindner a cane pole and put him on the dock, and he's pretty dangerous with that cane pole because he's not going to sit in one spot. He's going to move around, experiment with some different things, and that's what sort of the concept is. Let's first look at the seasonal movements of walleyes. And I've got a couple of different slides here. You know, we're going to go through this really pretty quickly. And this is a snapshot of Devil's Lake. And realistically, we're coming out of the cold water season right now. Our lakes are frozen over. And most of a good portion of any given population of fish throughout the winter months are in a specific lake section. And the reason is throughout the winter, the deepest main lake basins will hold a tremendous amount of fish. The reason is that's the warmest water in this lake right now, believe it or not. When this lake is frozen across, the deepest water is 39.9 degrees. It's a lot warmer than if I went into these back bays after it's been frozen over for the last 3 months. That water temperature could be 36 degrees or 34 degrees. Realistically, 39.9 is a lot better than 33 or 34 to a cold-blooded fish. Actually, when that water gets so cold, they get very, very lethargic. In spring, shortly thereafter, you know, in the next, when does the ice leave the lake here? In the next 45 days, unless we're in the next ice age, we're not quite sure yet. But by theory, as the ice is going to be leaving this area, and these fish are going to move up into the spawning areas. In this particular case, you've got a river coming in here, any hard bottom rock areas. Out in the Missouri River, we have a lot of fish that flush through this particular section of the river. They run upriver out of the main lake area, and they really pile up. We've got a lot of good spawning habitat up in this neck of the woods, and then even farther north. But we'll go the next step farther, move into the spring, late spring, summer. And one thing, I got a little point here. It says general movement to main lake basins. Large flats are critical. This is after they're done spawning. These fish are going to start filtering down into the lake. Right here, I actually have like these are the big underwater structures or flats in the lake. This is really critical thinking. Food shelves are these big underwater structures. Fish need food. So these big underwater flats in this lake are the really big gathering spots of these fish as they're moving out. Now, in some cases, they could be deep. Some cases, they could be shallow. It's really dependent on food. You go to Devil's Lake, there's 5 different types of food in that lake. You got bugs, you got shiner minnows, you got the small white bass, you got all these different foods that are moving around in this lake. And those fish are more or less grazing and taking advantage of wherever the best food is available at that time when you're on the water, or when whatever they're hunting at that particular moment in time. Let's move into the next step farther. Fall and winter, a lot of the fish will gather into the deep main lake basins because, as we said, that's the warmest water. Now we're going to get into finding fish. Today, no question about it, how many people in this audience have a depth finder in their possession, in their boat? How many people in this audience have a depth finder map combination in their boat, a map? That's good, a lot of you. For any of you relatively serious anglers, the first thing that you buy is a map. And you look at me and says, well, you have Hummingbird as a sponsor, you're here to sell product. No, my job here is to help you catch more fish, and I guarantee you the first thing you buy is a map, because it speeds the angling process immensely. Today's technology is so accurate, it takes a lot. If I'm going to go out and find an underwater hump out on a lake, that hump out there, and all I have is a depth finder, even if I'm familiar with that water, I'm going to drive around the lake, and the map's going to blow out of the boat, and we have to wander over there, and then I got to find the edge of this structure to find find it. With a map today, you drive right to it. The accuracy of these maps are incredible. I've actually had just 3 different types of electronics technologies. First is depth finder, mainstream analog depth finder, mapping technology, and side imaging. And all 3 of them have values to help you find fish. But let's just move forward. One thing, the biggest thing with electronics is relatively simple. You look at me and say, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Use your electronics to its full potential. 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water seasonally. Drive around and look for big fish and big fish on your depth finder. To go realistically, there's vast sections of our lakes. You go out in the Missouri River here, you go out in Devil's Lake, there's vast areas of the best underwater habitat there is. You'll drive over the beautiful walleye structures, and you know how many walleyes are there? 0. There's no fish there because there's no food. The fish are moving around in these systems. Every time you put the boat in the water, you have to be willing to use your electronics to go find the fish. That's the key. A lot of people look for like magic bullets in angling for like a bait. That isn't what it is. The magic bullet is you, yourself, how you operate on the water, to be willingness to go figure out where the fish are. I guarantee you this year, if you go out on the water, rather than driving out and going out to your first favorite spot, is to drive around, spend 45 minutes to an hour driving around and just looking with your electronics to go find that. You find a bunch of food. Here we have a big main river channel drop-off, drops to 45 foot of water. Here's 30 foot of water. There's tons of smelt out here, bait fish, and you see big walleyes there. That's a good spot to start fishing. A lot of times you drive over different sections of the lake, and it's the Sahara Desert. There's no fish there. Okay, that's a really simple concept. Mapping, this is what I was saying about the accuracy of mapping. And some of you will look at me and say, well, they're too expensive. No, they're not. My kid actually loaded one on my cell phone that I can get a Navionics or a mapping technology on my cell phone. You can buy that for, how much is it, Nick?
About $20 or so.
$20, and you can have this exact same technology on your cell phone. Obviously, it doesn't have all the features that I'm going to go show you on here, but what it does do is show your exact position. If I'm driving across the reservoir and I want to drive out to this point, I drive right to it. It shows your exact position on the lake. Not only that, what it does, it shows you this. The accuracy of it is so dynamically better. It speeds the process. All of a sudden, I'm catching walleyes on little 25-foot tips and points. All of a sudden, there's another 25-foot point right there. There's another 25-foot point there and there. The time where all of a sudden, if I was to drive around here and just look around for this, it would take me a long time to do that. I get on a pattern. All of a sudden, I get the main river channel swinging past here. You have the main current flow pushing on the front end of this underwater point. That's where the fish are, and I just hopscotch down the reservoir in the next spot. I drive right to them. And it's what the amazing thing is how many of the, when that's happening, you pull up to the next spot and you find the fish immediately. You know what I mean? That's what it's the efficiency of these units. You know, every year I go out I have people come up to my place throughout the summer months, and we happen to be blessed in the fact that I live in the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota, and I always like going out hunting new water. And we'll have people come up and they say, well, where are we going today? And I says, we're going to go to a new lake. I've never been on there before. And they don't think we're going to catch anything. And well, we pull up on the lake and I drive around. We happen to be fishing for bass or whatever species, and you find the biggest main lake point, and you pull up, put the trolling motor down, and make 5 casts with a jig worm and catch a 4-pounder. And all of a sudden you get a whole school of fish. And they look at me like you're a magician, and they go, no, it's not a magician. And it's just understanding the nature of the fish and the use of your electronics to its potential. And the biggest thing is this, is the duplication of the, as I was saying, the locational pattern. Once you establish it, whatever that is, whether it be deep, shallow, in between, that's what the really key of it is. It enables you to really sort of quickly process a lot of water. You guys are fishing big water here. There's a lot of water out there, and there's a lot of water where there's no fish at any one given point in time. For years, we fished tournaments up on Lake of the Woods. It's on the south end of the big lake, and it's called the Alanu Peninsula. there's this area called the Welcome Channel, and it was absolutely the finest looking. We happen to be fishing smallmouth bass tournaments up here, Al and myself. We fished this tournament for 10 years in a row. The first 3 or 4 years we went up there and we pulled into this area, and it's a mazes of sunken humps and weed beds and sand flats and rock piles, and some are deep and shallow. And this is absolutely, bar none, the finest looking smallmouth bass water I've ever seen on the planet. For the first 3 years we pulled up there, there's never any bass there. Al and I could never figure it out. Why aren't there any bass here? Fourth year you show up there, guess what? They're there. The fish were there the fourth year. All of a sudden those fish, as I was saying, what you have to think about with this locational, they're finding fish. In many cases, what the fish are moving around in these systems, walleyes in particular, and bass, all different species of fish are moving around like in a big cloud. And this cloud is moving like in and out based on this food. And so you have this whole area. If there's walleyes on this area, they're on this hump, they're on the next hump here, the next hump up. If they're in the shallow water zone, they're the same thing. So when you go up, once you get into an area, is to then tear it apart. Once you find an area that is holding fish. And that's true for that's the same thing when I was talking about concepts in angling, and this is applicable to every different species of fish you hunt for. Side imagery is a relatively new thing. The best thing I could explain to you what side imagery is, it's like underwater x-ray. I don't use it to find fish, but what I use it for is to figure out how fish would transition on underwater structures. You can see that, when you look at this picture, you can see what it is. It's a bunch of timber line. We're in 30 foot of water, and we're along the edge of a deep river channel here, and then you got some more logs out here, but that's how accurate it is. It's amazingly accurate. Then what I can also do is take my cursor out, and if I happen to be fishing for catfish, or I happen to be fishing for walleyes or bass, and I can actually put my cursor, save a waypoint, and put it right on the top of that log pile right there. And it transfers immediately that information, that latitude and longitude of where that log pile is, or that underwater cover is, on my map. The thing is, so many different times, once you isolate these key fish holding spots, whether it be a log jam, a rock pile, a weed transition, a hard bottom point, if I come back to that same spot, that there will be fish right exactly on it. So that's what on my depth finder, I have close to, 2,500 waypoints. I'm from lakes all over the country that you save, and you can actually transpose that information. I can take it, a buddy's going up to that lake, I can transpose and give him a chip, he can dump it in his depth finder, and he's got all my coordinates. Sometimes a lot of us might not want to do that, but you understand what the concept of it is. This is something that I use a real lot in my electronics technology. It's called depth highlight. And what it is, if I was fishing, and I've got it in here, we're mapping in spring. I'm fishing out here in the first week of June. The fish just got done spawning. The fish are dumping out of the back ends of the creeks. And you'll notice I have a depth highlight right here from 5 to 10 foot of water. And you can see how it's bright green is brilliantly lit up here. And then this red color is actually what's called shallow water highlight. And anything that's 4 foot and shallower, anything I hit with that, I can hit with my trolling motor. Or not my trolling motor, my big engine, my props. It's sort of a nice feature to have, but all of a sudden it turns brilliant red. But the thing is all of a sudden you'll have a cold front, or you'll have some adverse weather conditions, or the season is just advancing. These fish are dumping out of these back ends of the creek. And all of a sudden I can start catching some fish in 18 to 22 foot of water. And I put a depth highlight in 18 to 22 foot of water. Both of these two spots if you'll notice, it's the exact same code. You see what I mean? And all of a sudden, it just makes it more brilliantly. All of a sudden, I want to be fishing this area right in here, this tip of this point. When I look on the map here, when I have it lit up at 5 to 10, I don't even see that on there. You see what I mean? You can see how that could really help just process water. And this is one thing when you look at the professional walleye guys and young guys and the professional bass tournament anglers, this is why they've gotten so successful so fast, young guys, because they're really technological savvy on understanding this and how to apply it to fishing. Let's move a little bit farther along. Depth highlight. Oh, here's another Picture, I'm in midsummer, I'm fishing from, now I'm gonna go onto my depth finder, I'm gonna set it up at 20 foot of water with a highlight range plus or negative 5 foot. So in other words, between 15 and 25 foot of water, I'm gonna highlight, I think is this Minnewacan Flats? Minnewacan Flats on the south end of Devil's Lake. But you'll see, this is this big underwater structure, but all of a sudden I highlight it, and it looks like that all of a sudden. And I zoom in, and I'm going to follow my boat around. I'm not really following the exact depth contour. I'm positioning my boat along this bright green strip. It's how you're fishing. Okay. This gets to be the really interesting aspect of this presentation. And one thing about angling is really understanding the individual characteristics of the lures. I've got certain confidence in fishing individual baits and styles of baits and understanding one thing that's huge is understanding every bait in your tackle box has a range where it'll work. For some of you, I may have a larger range with the same bait because I've used it in more diverse fishing situations. For example, a shad wrap. A shad wrap is an incredibly effective bait that works in a wide range of different fishing situations. I look at this bait, I use it for shallow water casting, flatline trolling, and then whitewater fishing. And I fish it anywhere from 4 foot or right on the bank out to 30 foot of water. That's a pretty versatile bait. I catch a lot of fish on that in a wide range of different fishing situations throughout the course of the year. On the other hand, I have a 16th ounce jig and an 8th ounce jig. This is primarily a really narrow window of where it is. The only problem is with this